Hello everyone, how are you all? Hope you all are doing well. This is Paramita and welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, then I would request you to go through the content of my channel. If you like the videos, if you find them helpful, then do like it, share it, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And also do not forget to hit the notification bell button so that you do not miss any updates. And now without any further ado, let's get into the lecture. In this video, I will look at Marxist feminism. I'll try to analyze the theory of Marxist feminism in the simplest terms possible. I hope you find this lecture helpful. So now let us get into the lecture. So what is Marxist feminism? Just as there are different categories of feminism, Marxist feminism is another philosophical variant of feminism that attempts to look at the issues of feminism by applying Marxist theory. Marxist feminism holds that gender inequality is related to capitalism or the capitalist mode of production. Because Marxist feminists believe that capitalism leads to a class-based society where patriarchy is inevitable, and therefore capitalism becomes responsible for causing oppression of women in society. And then they also try to analyze the various ways that are adopted by capitalism to exploit women, like how the private ownership of property leads to gender inequality and oppression of women in society. Therefore, we can say from the perspective of Marxist feminists that capitalism leads to a society where patriarchy or the existence of patriarchy becomes inevitable, and where there is patriarchy, we know there is bound to be gender inequality. Therefore, in order to achieve the emancipation of women, or in order to liberate women, both patriarchy and capitalism should be done away with, should be completely dismantled. Otherwise, liberation of women would never be possible, and this is what is believed by Marxist feminists. They also, Marxist feminists, here we find that they also apply Marxist analysis to unpaid domestic labor and sex relations. They try to look at domestic labor that is put in by women as well as their sex relations. And how do they do that? They apply here as well Marxist analysis to in order to look into the matter. So we can say that this inequality, this gender inequality and this oppression of women is the result of the capitalist structure of society. Marxism has always been opposed to capitalism, and Marxism also divides labor into two categories. One is productive labor and the other one is unproductive labor. Now, what is productive labor? Productive labor is something that leads to the production of raw materials and also leads to the manufacturing of products, while unproductive labor is something that doesn't cause any, or that doesn't lead to any production of any products as such. Now, during the 1970s, using this analysis of productive and unproductive labor, Marxist feminists attempted to change the perception of the time, because during that time there was this preconceived notion, or people had this perception that family is only, or the only purpose of a family is just consumption, And Marxist feminists, they attempted to change this perception. And they, in order to change this perception, they used this analysis of productive and unproductive labor and presented arguments for state paid wage for homemakers, for women who confine themselves within the domestic household and put in much labor to run the household. So they put forward this argument in favor of homemakers, that state should pay them wage for the labor that they put in order to maintain a household. And they also tried to establish that the purpose of a family is not just consumption, rather a family is also a productive entity. Because if we look at capitalism, we shall find that the work or the labor that is required to maintain a household is considered to be of very little value by capitalism, while the same work, the same labor is considered to be valuable and productive by Marxists, by Marxist feminists. They say that the labor that a woman put in order to run the household, in order to maintain the household, it may not lead to the production of marketable products, but it is equivalent to a commodity. And herein lies the difference in the approach between capitalists and Marxist feminists. So, like I said, for capitalism, the labor that women put in, or the domestic labor to say, is of little value. Why? Because it does not lead to the production of any marketable products, while Marxist feminists, they simply hold a completely different view as far as domestic labor is concerned. And keeping that in mind and taking into account the analysis of productive and unproductive labor, Marxist feminists during the late 20th century, they put forward arguments in favor of homemakers, so that the state pays them wage for the domestic labor that they put in order to maintain the household. Marxist feminists also hold that since the labor that women put in to maintain the household is not considered productive, therefore it becomes the most important source of female oppression. Therefore, some of them advocate that domestic labor should be paid and should be included within the waged capitalist economy and shouldn't be ignored as something unproductive and shouldn't be devalued in any way. Marxist feminists hold that women have always been debarred, or let's say women have always been prevented from being a part of the public sphere or being a part of the public domain, and therefore they are compelled to be a part of the private sphere, and it is in this private sphere from where their oppression begins. This is what they hold, and they also say that the conditions of women would improve only when their labor would be acknowledged and their labor would be valued in the public sphere. So until and unless this is done, the labor that women have always put in went unacknowledged, went devalued, and so this should be prevented. This should be prevented, and like I said, they advocate that women should be paid for their domestic labor, and it should also become a part of the waged capitalist economy. And here in this context, Marxist feminists, they also take into account domestic slavery. They try to analyze the effect of domestic slavery on women in a capitalist society or in a capitalist system. They say that they in fact use this concept of housework or domestic work in order to overturn or in order to overthrow the capitalist construct of gendered labor within the house, and the and to show at the same time that how women are subjected to domestic slavery in a capitalist system, thereby causing their exploitation. They also make another point that women should be also released from their compelled, or let's say they should be released from their forced connection to reproductive labor. They should be rather released of this responsibility of reproductive labor. It should lie in the hands of women whether they like to undergo this reproductive labor or not. So mainly these are the three important aspects for which Marxist feminists fought a lot. Like I said, wages for domestic labor. Then they also tried to look at how domestic slavery, casts a very bad impact on women, how it leads to their exploitation within the domestic sphere, and then finally that women should be released from their responsibility of reproductive labor. However, despite these fundamentals of Marxist feminist or feminism, despite these fundamentals, the basics of Marxist feminism, it is also criticized for not taking into account the problems of women as women. Instead, they try to look at the problems of women in relation to economy, in relation to capitalism. So some critics say that this is where a Marxist feminism lacks, because it doesn't try to look at problems of women as they are, or they do not try to look at the problems of women as women. They do not try to look at their oppression as women. Rather, they try to look at it in relation to men and in relation to society, in relation to capitalist society. Another criticism with regard to Marxist feminism is that it doesn't even provide a full-fledged analysis of sexism in a capitalist system, that how sexism works, okay, and how it is instrumental in causing women's subjugation, in causing women's oppression in a capitalist system. However, in recent times we find that Marxist feminists, they focus on women's subordinate position both in the private sphere as well as the public sphere. Now the point is that in spite of gaining access to the public sphere, in spite of getting the freedom to work or to become a working woman, yet we find women undergoing oppression, undergoing or encountering, let's say, discrimination and oppression as well in the public sphere. So these are mainly the ideas related to Marxist feminism. So I hope you find the lecture helpful. If you like it, then please give it a thumbs up, and do not forget to share it, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel as well. I will see you in a next video, which would be again related to feminism. Until then, bye bye.